live. Yeah. All right, so we are live now. So we'll start in a minute or so. And yeah, you can. So I'm just going to share my screen as well. Good evening. We're just finishing our little technical setup here, but do sit down, grab yourselves a cup of water, a cup of tea, whatever it is, a peg of whiskey, whatever you have at 8 p.m. And settle in. I'm really, really excited for today's talk, and I know many of you are as well. I've had lots of messages through the day that have been expressing how much we're looking forward to this. So I'm really, really excited to get started, and we will do so in just a minute or so. And like every day, drop us a hi, let us know that you're here. We're talking about Delhi street food or Delhi food today. So if you are from Delhi, let us know. If you have a favorite food from Delhi, let us know whether you're from there or not. And yeah, just say hi and let us know what's happening and why the food of Delhi was interesting enough for you to come and listen to this talk this evening.
सुबह जैसे आँख खोली थे हमने सोचा कि चलो चाय वाय का बंदोबस्त करते हैं, देखते जैसे आँख खोली इधर भी मुर्दा इधर भी मुर्दा और मक्खियाँ ऐसी उनके ऊपर कि जैसे कि लेयर ऑफ मक्खियाँ नहीं होती। जब तक 80 जिंदा तुसे भी जिंदा हो, जब 80 मर गए तो फिर उसकी जिम्मेवारी साड़ी नहीं।
Good evening, everybody. I hope all of you are well. We are on day 10 of our 16-day partition series, which is crazy. We now have much less left than we had. We're so much more further along than halfway. And I can't believe that it's going quite so fast. And we're obviously coming closer and closer to Independence Day for both India and Pakistan, which is the events around which these talks were timed. And so as we get closer, we'll start hearing more and more personal stories to bring those 2 days to life for us. Yesterday, we took a sort of whirlwind tour of Calcutta, talking about the different foods in that city and what makes it what it is today. And today we are going to New Delhi. So Delhi, erstwhile Shahjahanabad, is arguably the Indian city that transformed the most dramatically after partition, with the influx of refugees from West Punjab, Sindh, Northwest Frontier provinces, and simultaneously, obviously, some 330,000 odd old-time residents of the city left for the newly formed state of Pakistan. So the city's demographics were permanently altered, and Delhi began to grow in every imaginable direction, expanding to the north, south, east, and west to accommodate its growing population. So today, many areas that are unmistakably part of the city's fabric were actually hastily put together in an attempt to house the many, many, many new refugees and residents of the city. So areas like Lajpat Nagar or Amar Colony or Rajendra Nagar or Malviya Nagar, Tilak Nagar, among many others, were actually set up only after in 1947. And whether you were from Lahore or Dera Ismail or Rawalpindi or any of the many other places that people came from, Delhi was now your home, and the process of cultural integration, which had defined Delhi for centuries before partition, continued as cultures and languages, attire and food all came together. And it continues, obviously, to be not only the capital of the country, but also one of the biggest and busiest cities of the country, and therefore continues to attract several migrants, it's obviously the government, where the government is, so lots of diplomats and lots of food influences from there as well. And it continues to be that melting pot. But that being said, there is a definite Delhi culture about it. There is something about the food in Delhi that you can't find in other places in this country. And people have talked about that. They've talked about how you go to Delhi for the food. And so today I have with me perhaps the most qualified person to talk about the food of Delhi. Anubhav Sabra is the founder of the very, very popular Delhi food walks. He is a unbridled Delhiwala with a deep love and knowledge of his city's culinary heritage and history. And I first met Anubhav in 2016 when he conducted a food tour of Chandni Chowk that I was on, and I was just blown away by his knowledge and have followed his sort of his growth ever since, and seen how he's gone now all over the country really, and you know, taken it much further than Delhi. But I think Delhi has a soft spot in his heart and remains his favorite perhaps. So thank you so much, Anubhav, for being with me today. And we're going to chat all things Delhi food, and he's going to tell us more about this wonderful city. So thank you so much and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really excited that you're here. And the way we're going to structure today's talk, just for everyone watching's benefit, is we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to just structure it time-wise. So pre-partition, and then the partition years, which we're defining roughly as the late 40s to about the 60s, and then coming more into the migration since then that's continuing today, and how things have changed with that. But before we get into that, Anubhav, would you be able maybe just to tell us a little bit about your connection to partition of 1947?
Yeah, so my grandparents, they migrated from a place in Pakistan named Bakhar. And like everyone else, everyone went all over India. We came to Bihar. I don't know if anyone has documented that transition of people from from Pakistan to Bihar. And we first moved to Patna, that is the capital of Bihar, and then to you can say a major trading hub in North Bihar named Muzaffarpur. So and then we got a land there, and then we settled there.
Nice. And did they come as part of a big community that came with that?
Yes, yes. The whole, you can say the whole family, the extended family, they all moved to Bihar.
Wow, yeah, you're right. I don't know if it's been documented. I personally don't know very much about people who went and to settle in Bihar after partition. Wow, that's really interesting. And but you would say that you're from Delhi.
Actually, I won't say I'm from Delhi. I stayed there for quite a longer time in Bihar. And I did my schooling from Bihar, then I moved to Dehradun, and then for my higher studies to Delhi. And then I stayed in Delhi in fact, I've been staying in Delhi for past 20 years now. So you can say now I'm a Delhiwala.
Yeah.
I stayed in Uttarakhand, I stayed in Bihar, then Delhi. So it's a mix of all different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so
you can say now my whole family has moved to Delhi. So we are living in Delhi. You can say now we are Delhiwala.
Now you're. So what was it? I mean, you've lived in all these different places. What was it about the food culture of Delhi that motivated you to even start Delhi Food Walks?
For me, I started Delhi Food Walks just to document the lesser known food places in Delhi and to showcase the food heritage of Delhi to the outside world. So that was the twin objectives of starting Delhi Food Walks. And initially it started as a food blog, and over the period of time, it took the shape of food tours. And now I've traveled almost like all over India, and I documented on my YouTube channel. So that's what I do for my living now.
That's amazing. Such an incredible story. Okay, so I referenced Delhi as a historical, cultural melting pot. So can you maybe start us off by talking a little bit about the food in Delhi pre-partition? What were the major influences, and what might somebody have found on the streets in those days?
If you ask the food of Delhi, what was in the pre-partition era, I would say like prior to 1947, the city was just Shahjahanabad. And in fact, till date, we call that a living city. In fact, Rana Sabvi had written a book, Shahjahanabad, a living city. And then rest was not the city. That was more of a kind of a center of power, of a capital, you can say. So what exactly is, in fact, we call Shahjahanabad as a sheher. The walled city, Old Delhi or Delhi Sikh, whatever name you call it, that's what we call sheher. And I will talk about sheher, what exactly it is while talk about the food of Delhi. So what was available on the streets of Delhi, if I talk about that, eating out culture was a taboo for Delhiwala in good old days. If you see, there have been many stories about the street hawkers who used to go from one place to other place, from one street to other street, and people will come out of their home. They will carry their own vessel, and they will go to the khomcha wala, get the food.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what we call. They have a triangle-shaped kiosk, so which they carry from one place to other place, which has changed over the period of time. But still, if you go to Old Delhi, you'll find many of them carrying chole kulche or what do you say, the pipe wale chole and kulche from one place to other place, or naan khatai walas. They also go from one place to other place. So these food vendors, they used to walk from one street to another street. People used to come out of their home, carry their own vessel, get the food packed, and eat at home. And in fact, the story of Ghante Wala is very popular. That shop, which got closed, in fact, I think 3 4 years back, that was started in 1790, and that used to be the oldest sweet shop in Delhi. And the name Ghante Wala came from that the person who is a street hawker. He used to go from one place to other place, ringing his bell, and
Oh,
that became his trademark. So you can see that's how the food culture started evolving in Shahjahanabad as street hawkers. Then they were, and street food is also a kind of a byproduct of kind of urbanization. Those people who used to work in the shops, the shopkeepers, they used to also get the food from the streets and eat inside the shops. But it was quite rare for a Delhi wala whom you can spot eating on the street. Um now coming to the next question, what exactly is a city? A city for me is not merely a center of power. It's a place where trade happens. It's a place where you have unique crafts. It's a place you have your own culture, your own food. So that defines a city. That's why, in fact, we called it Shahjahanabad a living city. And when it was a city, there were merchants, there were traders who used to come from all parts of India for trading. Then there were travelers, they were in fact pilgrims who used to come to visit Yogmaya temple or Kalkaji Mandir. So they all used to come to the city and stay in Shahjahanabad. In fact, Jahan Nara, who designed Old Delhi, who designed the main commercial street, what we call Chandni Chowk, which you have also visited, and she was commissioned to like kind of design that place, what we known as Chandni Chowk, and she came up with this Karwa Sarai that existed right at the corner, like right at the street of Nai Sarak, and now it is a town hall. So that used to be a Karwa Sarai where people used to come and stay in the city. Then there were many visitors who used to come for their own work, like over the period of time, like say surveyors, engineers, they were town planners, who they also used to come to the cities for work. And they also used to stay within the city in Shahjahanabad. Then in 1864, there was a railway service that started from Delhi to Hapra and Kalka, which later became the colonial capital, a kind of like summer capital and winter capital for Britishers. So that also brought many people from outside to the city, Shahjahanabad. And many come for their own work, but they never stayed outside the old city. And these visitors who were coming to city, they needed food to eat. So that's how the establishment started growing up in Shahjahanabad. But most of the food was vegetarian. Until date, if you go, there are many. If you go around the Fatehpuri area, the place right next to the spice market where you also visited Khari Bauli, the picture which I shared with you in the morning.
yes.
So that place also, if you visit, there are many basas or bhojnalay, and all of them, 100% of them, they are vegetarians. So it used to be a kind of a place, more of an inclusive menu where the traders, the merchants, travelers, they all you can come. In the pilgrims, they also can come, they can stay, and they can eat the vegetarian meal there.
And was it one particular community that opened all of these places, or who owned all of these different eateries?
So it depends, like mostly in the Chandni Chowk area, it was all the places were owned by people from Hindu community.
Okay.
So if you talk about Adarsh Bhojnalay or
Mm.
Bijwasi Bhojnalay, or there is one called Annapurna Bhojnalay, Soni Bhojnalay, they all have proper vegetarian food. Some of them make the food without using onion and garlic as well. So that they can, that's a part of a kind of an inclusive menu. So they can accommodate all the people from all different, they can cater to the palate of all different communities.
Mm.
So you can see there were two parts. One were the people who were not eating on the street. They used to get the food packed and eat at their home. And
Mhm.
second, there were traders and merchants or travelers or pilgrims who were coming and who patronized kind of these establishments that later became the food culture of old Delhi. Then with modernity, many offices opened up, many factories opened up.
Mm.
Then people started going to colleges, schools, and in the workplaces, they were, if they're going to schools or college, they had canteens. The tea shops opened up all over the city, and this was not happening only in Delhi. It
Mm.
happened in Chennai. Sorry, because at that time Madras or
Right.
Kolkata, it was happening there as well. In
Okay.
fact, in Kolkata, they have these concepts of cabins where they have the food which was served to babus, and later it became open to all the people. So that's how the food culture evolved around the
Yeah.
time of pre-partition era till the partition time. And
So
if you talk
during
about,
the pre-partition time, just one question, like after the British came in, obviously Shahjahanabad built by Shah Jahan himself, presumably a lot of food that the Mughals ate
yeah.
was available in within the city at that time.
Mhm.
So where was that food in all of this?
So if you talk about the food of that time, there were many communities they were living that were part of the old city. If
Okay.
you, I call it a food subculture. So that was the first of this was religion. We
Hmm.
had Hindus, we had Muslims, we have Jains, we have Sikh, we have Christians. They all were part of Shahjahanabad,
Right.
and they have their own food cultures. Like say Jains, if they will, they have we have Noghara temple, and we have Digambar Jain temple right opposite to Red Fort. They were big community of Jain people living out there. Then
Hmm.
we had Sikh community also living out there. Then Hindus, we have Kshatriyas, sorry, castes were there. There were Baniyas,
Right.
there were Khatris. They were all part of old Delhi, and that was the food of Delhi that time. What they used to eat. Say if you talk about just a stretch from of Chandni Chowk, from right at the entrance of Chandni Chowk, from Red Fort side to Fatehpuri, all the food joints are vegetarian, and majority of them they cook food without using onion and garlic. Like say if you go to Parathe Wali Gali, the oldest shop is there since 1872,
Yeah.
and that's a sixth generation, seventh generation you can say the shop. And till date they don't use onion and garlic in their food. And originally, they are also not from Delhi. They came from Madhya Pradesh and settled down in Old Delhi and started selling parathas. And there used to be many of them. Now only four exist there.
Hmm.
Then there are other food joints as well. Natraj Dahi Balla Wala is there, which was again started in 1914. That was again pre-partition. Then Jalebi Wala started in 1884. Old famous Jalebi Wala shop. That's again a pre-partition era. So
Yeah.
there were many food joints. And then the food about that was the food of these communities. If and then the food was also kind of seasonal. What was available in that season time.
Right.
If you go to Old Delhi in the winter's time, you will find different kinds of halwas there. You'll be having gajar ka halwa, you'll have moong dal halwa, you
Hmm.
have aloe vera halwa, you have hapshi halwa, you have
Hmm.
gond ka halwa. These were different kinds of halwas available. If you go in different seasons, like say if you go around monsoon time, you will see ghevar, you will see anarsa.
Hmm.
So it also changes. Then the food also changes from festival time. If
Yeah.
you go around Holi festival, you see the shops selling gujiyas everywhere. And then in Ramzan time, if you go there, in Ramzan time, you see khajala, feni, all this stuff. So the food changes according to
Yeah.
festival, according to season,
Yeah.
and then it also changes from morning till evening. Like what people used to eat in the morning time was not available in the evening time. Like say, if you have been to the morning breakfast tour, in the morning you will have bedmi aloo. That is a very most authentic
Right.
breakfast dish of Old Delhi. Then you have nagori halwa, which
Hmm.
again you get only till certain time, like 10:30, 11 o'clock. After it is not available. So then nahari and paya is
Hmm.
again available only in the breakfast time at certain places. So that was the food of Old Delhi,
Okay.
the food of different communities,
Hmm.
different religions, different places, and it changes from season to season, from festival to festival, and that has evolved over the period of time.
Wow. And I've read somewhere that I well actually I'll ask you the question, but you can answer it when you talk about the partition time. I've read somewhere that after there was, a big exodus of so many Muslims from Delhi in 1947, a lot of the very, very skilled cooks, generational cooks, also left Delhi because they lost a lot of their patronage. Is that true, or is that sort of a tale?
It's a tale, if you ask me. Most of the like whom we call kebabchis or bawarchi
Hmm.
or khansamas or caterers, whatever name you call them.
Yeah.
Most of them they stayed in the old Delhi. Like
Okay.
say the most famous bawarchi of old Delhi is Hakimi Bawarchi. If you go around, there's a Bawarchi Mohalla that exists in old Delhi near Kabristan, near Turkman Gate. There's a
Okay.
whole Bawarchi Mohalla, and there are many cooks. They live there.
Hmm.
And then we had many other Bawarchis who were kind of very renowned in Old Delhi or in Shahjahanabad, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Hakimi Bawarchi was there, who was from Lal Kuan area. Then you had Kallan Bawarchi, who still is there. If you go to Matia Mahal, right opposite Jama Masjid, gate number 1, that lane, Kallan Bawarchi is there. If you go towards Haveli Azam Khan, you have Khalil Ahmad Bawarchi. So there are many Bawarchis. Then there were many Chaatwalas. They got scattered all over the city, but
Hmm.
they existed, and many of them they went to other parts of to Pakistan as well. I
Right.
made a short video with a Pakistani based YouTuber. His name is Zia. So where we covered the food of old Delhi, Shahjahanabad, and Karachi.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was in Delhi, but he was in Karachi, and we shared some of our notes. Like say, if you walk around Karachi, there are many food joints by the name Delhi.
Right.
They have Delhi Nahari, they have Delhi Nahari wala, they have Delhi Dahi Bada wala. So all those shops, and they came from India. They went from India to Pakistan.
Right, right.
And,
Actually, the first day we looked at a few photos and we talked about this phenomenon of people leaving their home behind and coming to a new land and naming their new venture after the place they knew, or naming the dish after, Lahori chicken or Peshawari, whatever it is, like naming it
yes.
Peshawari naan or whatever after the place they knew. So that's amazing. Guys, you should definitely go check out this YouTube video. I know I am.
Mm. Yeah, so they all stayed. Like many of them, this not all of them. Many of them stayed here, and many of them went there. They started again the food enterprise.
There.
Mhm.
Okay. And what sort of influence did the British have on the food of Delhi?
If you ask me, like Britishers, the food of Britishers were mostly kind of like, what would I say? Different kinds of bread, what we eat, the kind of baking culture which started in Delhi, that was there. And then it's been all documented, the different kind of soup Mulugtani soup that was there, and then the puddings they started. So they were all part of Delhi's food culture. And still date, like if you in Connaught Place, this Wengers exist, and there you get very nice pastries and different kinds of bakery items was started around that time. Then there were other few restaurants as well, which had the food of Britishers.
There. And did that permeate the local diet, or was it part of the food culture? But while the Britishers were there, largely for their consumption.
I think that was largely for their consumption. It was not much part of the city which I'm talking about,
Right.
Shahjahanabad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone has asked a question. Can you talk about Shah Jahanabad's role in bringing chaat to Delhi?
See, this is again, there are many folk tales associated with chaat.
Yeah.
And there's a story that the water of Yamuna River was not good for the health of the people who were living in the city in Old Delhi, in Shahjahanabad. And the Hakim, they said this to Shah Jahan, that if you want to get any cure of this disease, why not you add some? You created this chart where you add many spices which could cure them from all these diseases. So that's the one story. But I believe that chart came from chatna, like the way you
Okay.
when you have something savory or spicy or
Yeah.
tangy, when you lick your fingers, and then that's how the word chatna, from chatna to chart, came into being. And majority of chartwalas, I believe, like they came from the side of Uttar Pradesh to Delhi.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think I find it more appropriate how it evolved,
Right.
not that story of the water getting infected, and then they came up with this idea of chart where they added all the spices and the heat that got cured. That could be one of the reason, that could one of the stories, but I think that's more, I find it more, it came from chatna to chart.
And would that be the same then? Calcutta and Bombay also have their own chaat cultures. Would that also be largely a UP migration to those cities, or
Yes,
yeah?
yes, I believe so. It has happened, like if you go to Kolkata, majority of street food vendors are from UP and Bihar.
Okay.
The puchka walas or the chaat walas, majority of them are from UP and Bihar. I think it's same for Mumbai.
Okay.
You can tell more, but in Mumbai as well, I believe most of the chaat walas or pani puri walas, they
Mhm.
came from UP and started their own venture out there. But the name changed from place to place.
Right.
But the makers were mostly the people who migrated from UP.
Huh. Fascinating. Fascinating. Um, okay, so what was once a Mughal city to some extent became a trader city, and then arguably after 1947, Delhi, became somewhat of a Punjabi city. So, can we talk about like what happened at partition? What in the 40s, 50s, 60s? How did the food culture of the city change with all of these different communities settling down in Delhi in such large numbers?
Yeah, so what you said, like once it was a Mughal city, then it became a British city, and then it became a Punjabi city in 1950s. We need to understand the demography around the time of partition. With independence, like there was a huge displacement of people. It was around 15 million people who got displaced. And if we talk about the population of Delhi around 1947, the population of whole of Delhi was 9 lakhs, out of which 33% were Muslims.
Wow.
And after partition, the population of Muslims came down to 6%, and the population also came down to 6 lakhs. And nearly just 1.5 months later, after the partition, 1947, it became 14 lakhs. So it started from 9 lakhs to 6 lakhs to 14 lakhs, and it got doubled. And if you see, the percentage of Muslims declined from 33% to 6%. So that you can say that's how the city changed from Mughal city, that was a British city, and then it became a Punjabi city, because those who came, the number of people, if you say 6, 12, 14, around 8 lakh people who came, they were from Hindus and Sikh community. They came to the city, and they kind of changed the food culture of you say the whole of the city. And those who came, they came from Western Punjab, Sindh, and northwestern frontier province. And when they came to the city, most of the refugees, they found shelters in wherever they could. It could be camps or gurdwaras or temples, or even in military barracks or parks or pavements, anywhere. And if I think it's better if we can talk about a little bit of about how the city also expanded.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in 1942, like now what we know, we have like East Delhi, in West Delhi, North Delhi, South Delhi, different parts of Delhi, and which you talked in the introduction as well. In 1942, little existed beyond civil lines. I stay very close to civil lines in North Delhi, and in 1942, civil lines used to be a kind of a British era neighborhood, and there used to be European style hotels. Until late, you have Maiden's Hotel that was started in 1903, and north of civil lines was Kingsway. In fact, I stay in Kingsway camp. Not a camp right now; it's an area now. It's all a residential area. But yeah, I stay in Kingsway camp, GTB Nagar, Guru Tegh Bahadur Nagar. So this Kingsway was earmarked for the Viceroy's house, and which was eventually built on Raisina Hill. And Kingsway camp became Delhi's largest refugee camp. And in 1956, the Indian government allotted almost 2,000 acres of land to Ministry of Relief and Rehabilitation to settle these refugees. And then came different areas around North Delhi. The first one was Vijayanagar, which is very close to Delhi University. Then we have Gujranwala town there, again named after a place in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Then you have Guru Tegh Bahadur Nagar. Then we have Mukherjee Nagar. Then we have Derawan Nagar. All these places came in North Delhi. Again, in central Delhi, we had the outer limit was, you can say, Lodi Road. And in fact, Lodi Colony was the last colony built by Britishers. And
Okay.
in middle of 1950s, around 50s, refugees were moved to the empty flats in Lodi Colony. In 1951, then Khan Market came into being, where the ground floor was shops, and the first floor, then the flats, mostly the refugees lived. And in South Delhi, it was all kind of an agricultural land.
Mm.
And again, 1956, the new colonies started coming up, Lajpat Nagar, Defense Colony, that were again primarily Punjabi families living there. Then in West Delhi, Karol Bagh was the western limit until before 1947, you can say. And in 50s and 60s, we had these locations which you talked about in your introduction, Rajendra Nagar, West Patel Nagar, Rajouri Garden, which overwhelmingly became kind of Punjabi neighborhoods. So you can see that's how the city expanded, and the food culture also changed. what was once a Mughal city, then British city, and then became a complete Punjabi city by 50s. So that's how the
So
transition happened.
just to reflect on that, by the 50s, like we're not talking a long time, we're talking like within a couple of years, the landscape of the whole city has changed. And I'm sure everyone who's watching who's from Delhi can't even imagine Delhi populated with only 14 lakh people today.
Yeah. And now today we have almost around, I think, 22 million, more than 22 million people living in Delhi. So yeah. And now if you talk about the food, like how it has changed, like how the city expanded, we had the people who were living in Delhi. It was the food of Muslim communities, of Kayas or Baniyas or Khatris, all different communities.
So
Then we,
before we move from there, can you just give us like some characterization, like what is Kayast food versus Khatri food versus Baniya food? I think Mughal food maybe people are more familiar with, but some slight characterizations, pardon me, of the different kinds of
see,
foods.
it was all overlapping. There was that's what we call Ganga, Jamna, Tehzeeb or syncretic culture of Shahjahanabad. It
Yeah.
was all overlapping. So there was not like exactly this is what they will eat. There were some kind of what do you say distinctions were there. Like say I talked about bedimi aloo, or this dish is more of a kayas and baniya origin. Then we spoke about moong dal laddu. That's
Mhm.
again what we call ram laddu. That's again very popular in Lajpat Nagar. That's also Kayas Bania food. And then we had like food of Muslim communities there. It was
Yeah.
again both mix of vegetarian and non-vegetarian. There
Mhm.
were dishes like aloo gosht, chukandar gosht. These were the food. There were different kinds of breads available around in like shirmal. You have khamiri roti. All these different kinds of bread were there. Taftan, and then lal roti, then kulchas. So these were all different kinds of bread available. So it's a mix of overlapping all different kinds of food. Then there were chart, that specific charts of Old Delhi, like say Kulle ki chart,
Mhm.
um, where you scoop out the fruit, you fill it with pomegranate, you add powdered sugar, you add some black salt, you add some roasted cumin. So it's a kind of a chart very popular in Old Delhi. Then you have kalmi vada, that's made up of chana ki dal. That's also very specific to different communities of Bania, Kayas. So it's kind of all overlapping. Not specifically, you can say like this only Kayas people were making or eating. Like still date, we talk about puri and aloo sabji, if you go to Matia Mahal, there are many shops where you get puri and aloo. But we always think about that, oh, that's kind of a Muslim neighborhood, there will be only non-vegetarian food joints. There are many food joints also that exist there. So the food overlap from one community to other community. And that's what we call the syncretic culture of Shahjahanabad.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were starting to
Yeah,
talk
so
about.
I was saying like there was the food of these all different communities, and then second was the food of refugees who came from Pakistan, mostly I said like Hindus and Sikh from Sindh, from NBWFP, and their food also changed the food like the food landscape of Delhi. And then there was migration also happening since 1911, 1912, when the capital shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. So the food was continuously evolving, and till date it is evolving. So should I talk about the food of refugees, like how it brought the change?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I've talked about a little bit about the food of old Delhi. So let's talk more about the food of refugees, how it changed. So I call this whole transition, or I call it Punjabi Karan in Hindi, or you can call it Punjabization, that happened when Punjabis moved to the city.
Yeah.
But we need to understand what Punjabis were eating. Punjab was more of an agricultural land, and what was grown out there, it was more of wheat, corn, sarson, then dairy. These were the things. So it's kind of like it's a mix of the food, the influence of partition. The people who came from Punjab, it changed with the ingredients, the flavors, and the cooking methods. All it changed. And what were the major ingredients? If you talk about, it's like wheat, sarson, then dairy, then there were different kinds of lentils, what we call mash ki dal or what we call rajma, that became part of city's food culture. The other ingredients were chole. We talk a lot about butter chicken, which I will also talk about, but we don't talk much about the pindi chole and how it became popular all over the city. Until date, if you go to any place, any chole bhature shop in Delhi, the name of the shop will be always Rawalpindi ke mashhoor chole bhature. So that chole became also part of the food culture of Delhi. Then tomatoes, like Punjabis taught us how to eat tomatoes in the city in Delhi. Chicken or chicken, whatever you call it. So that also became popular. And and that was the major ingredients, and the cooking method also changed. We all know the story of how its Sanja Chula started, the community oven, and over the period of time, people started making the meat in that oven, tandoor. And tandoor, the origin of tandoor is in Central Asia. It came to NWFP, then it came to India, and they start initially it was used to making breads, but over the period of time, people started making meat or cooking meat in it, and that became essential part of Delhi's food culture, the tandoori chicken, or I think everyone knows the story of butter chicken.
I think
So,
it's worth maybe just giving a quick summary of the story in case there's someone who hasn't heard it.
acha. In fact, I always say like the Punjabis introduced Delhi to tomatoes. In fact, one more thing, the lacha pyaj which we eat
Huh.
in most of the restaurants in Punjab, that was also Punjabi invention.
Okay.
And I also call it like the dairy. Like these days, we are call it paniri karan. That also had happened in Delhi. You get to see eat matar paneer or saag paneer or paneer makhni. That's also became part of the food culture of Delhi. Then the dhaba culture, the roadside eateries which started all over the city. Until date, like if you go in Delhi, there are many famous dhabas like Rajendra Dhaba is there, Pehlwan the hotel is there, Kake the hotel is there. There are so many dhabas that still exist.
Hmm.
Initially, it was started for people who were crossing one place to other place, but it became essential city's food culture. One interesting story I wanted to share about the story of MDH. I don't know many whom know, they know it or not. MDH, how it started. The name MDH means Mahashay Di Hatti. And there was this man from Sialkot. His name was Dharampal Gulati. So he moved to Delhi and after partition, and he bought a Ghoda Gadi, what we call horse cart,
Mhm.
from, and he used to ferry people in Chandni Chowk. He bought it for at 650 rupees, only 650 rupees. And within a year, he saved around 9,700 rupees. And he relaunched his family brand as Mahashadi Hatti.
Wow.
Before this lockdown happened, I was in Karol Bagh. I visited this place called Rupak Masala.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So they are their relatives. So they shared this story with me. So I thought I should also share it with everyone. So he started from a kiosk in Karol Bagh, and now everyone knows this success story of MDH.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, do you want to just maybe quickly share the butter chicken story before we move on?
Yes. So the butter chicken it was invented in a restaurant in Daryaganj called Moti Mahal. It was started by Kundan Lal, and he came from Peshawar to India. And that time there was limited refrigeration available. So just to keep his chicken fresh or so it could last for more days, he just mixed it with the tomato gravy, added some butter, and then that's how it became the butter chicken, which defined now it's popular all over the world.
Yeah,
So
I mean, just to reflect on that for a second, this dish was invented in a refugee camp because they didn't have the resources available to eat the food that they wanted to eat. And now this is the dish that almost defines Indian food around the world. Like today, people are starting to eat different things. But if you went to any average Indian restaurant anywhere in the world, 15 years ago, you may not see anything else on the menu. You will always find butter chicken on the menu. So that's just, I mean, it's a well-known story, but for good reason. It's an incredible one.
yeah, that's I think more popular amongst Westerners, like whomsoever come on our food tours, they also ask us to take them
Because
to butter.
everyone knows it.
Everyone knows
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely.
The first thing, if you ask anyone outside India what's the food of India, they will say butter chicken and naan,
Yeah,
and then third would be dal makhni, and then we are done. So, so that's the thing. And then other, but I think I wanted to share the story of this chole bhature scene. That how started. That also became very popular all over the city. And if you go to any place, the most famous food joints around the chole bhature joints in Delhi, either it's in Sadar Bazaar, Nandi Hatti, or if you go to Chache Di Hatti in Kamla Nagar, or if you go to Malka Ganj, again in very close to the university, all these places, the name of the shops you will always find is written Rawalpindi ke mashhoor chole bhature. And all of them, those who are selling, now you have people, migrants, they also started selling chole bhature, but the original shop, the shop owners, they came from Pakistan and they started these shops. And if you go and talk to any of them, just ask the story how they started their shop. They'll tell them that first they started selling it from the street shop, then they bought a cart, then they bought a shop, and now they have a proper eatery, proper food joint. And the way they make pindi chole is very different from other kinds of chole. It's more darker in color, more spicy, and most of them they add anar dana in it. They
Mm.
add amla in it. Just to nowadays, people have started adding tea bags and all, but still, late like many of them, the original ones they don't use tea bags. If you go to Nandi Hatti, and most of them, in fact, they don't use maida also in bhatura. They make bhaturas of suji, and
Oh,
they
okay.
don't use in fact onion and garlic as well. If you still date, if you go to Nandi Hatti shop in Old Delhi, they don't use onion and garlic in their chole bhature. So that's also define the food culture, and you get it in Old Delhi and you get it outside Old Delhi as well, everywhere wherever the Punjabis move from in different colonies of Delhi. So yeah.
And so, did a lot of refugees, they obviously, they did various things in the camps to feed their people, and we talked about the butter chicken story, etc. But a very large number of refugees set up food establishments, and that's why they changed the food culture, or was it more organic? Or was it
Uh,
that food was an obvious business?
this was an obvious business, like to sustain themselves. I talked about like when the refugees moved, when people moved from say Pakistan to India, they were living in all these camps, refugee camps, and not all of them they were living. They were most of them they were homeless as well. They were living on the streets, on the pavements, in the parks, in the military barracks, in the schools, gurdwaras, wherever they found the place. They stayed there, and most of them, when they were living on the streets, they started catering to the people who were on the streets.
Around them?
It was kind of like supporting each other, and what they carried from their hometown was their skill sets of cooking the food of their hometown, and they started selling it on the street, and slowly that's how the street food culture also changed. So if you talk to any, as I said, like most of the chole bhature shops, they all have same stories. They started from streets, then
Yeah.
they moved on to cart, then they no, in fact, first they started from street, then they had a kiosk, then they moved on a cart, moving from one place to other place, and they got the space finally, and then started selling the food from there.
Wow. And so that maybe took us to the 1950s, 60s. During this time, was the British food culture that they had left behind retained?
One more point. I just missed one more point
Yeah.
about the migration that was happening. We talked about the food of the city, say Old Delhi or Shahjahanabad, then the food of the refugees, like how it brought in. But most of the people, they don't talk about the food of migration that was happening pre-partition. Like in 1911, when the capital shifted from Kolkata to Delhi, many people from Bengal, they also moved to Delhi, and they brought their food as well, and that became part of the food culture of the city. Say when the capital shifted, majority of them they were working in the government jobs in the administration, so they have to also move. Secondly, there were people who were from business community. They thought that the center of power has shifted, why not they also shift to the capital. And then when they moved, they brought their own food. Till date, if you go to Old Delhi, there's a sweet shop by the name Annapurna Bhandar, which was started in 1929, right opposite Gurdwara Shishganj Sahib, near the Fountain Chowk, near the Favara. That shop still exists. And then in 1960s, we had this EPDP, East Pakistan Displaced Persons Community, what we call CR Park, Chittaranjan Das Park. So
Yeah.
there also you have all the food of Bengali community. Then we had other community who were Tamilians and people from Kerala, Malayali people. They also moved from Tamil Nadu to Delhi or from Kerala, because most of them they were working as stenographers or typists or clerks. Some of them they were in Indian civil services around that time, and they also brought their food to the city. In fact, the first Madras store was opened in 1932 in Gold Market, and later they moved to Karol Bagh. And Karol Bagh, which was the western limit, which we talked about of the city, they most of the people who moved from Tamil Nadu they settled there. And then over the period of time, you have RK Puram and places near the Malai Mandir. All
Mm.
those places, you have Matthew Cafe. So they all changed the culinary landscape of the city. And then in 50s, 60s, we had New Aruna Nagar, which is known by the name Majnu Ka Tila, which is a more of a Tibetan refugee colony. So they also moved to Delhi in late 50s when Tibetan uprising happened there,
Mhm.
and their food also got integrated into Delhi's food culture. And now recently, during the lockdown time, we all have seen that the food, we don't talk about the food of Bihari or people from that community. In fact, the place where I live in Mukherjee Nagar, my member of parliament and member of legislative assembly, both of them are from Bihar. So you can just imagine the 40% of the people who are living in Delhi, they constitute migrants. And we don't talk about their food, but they also have a lot of influence on Delhi's food culture,
Yeah.
and their food is also available everywhere. So I think that's how we could define the food of the city from pre-partition to post-partition. Now you can ask me the question.
No, that was fascinating. Thank you. So I mean, if you just think about, the concept of a melting pot, we think of Delhi's food, and when anyone who thinks about it, they will have certain associations that will be different from the person next to them. And there's no one definition of, oh, this is the food of Delhi, and it's because it's been this melting pot of cultures for hundreds and hundreds of years. And a dosa is as much Delhi food as sandesh or as butter chicken or whatever. They've all been there for
Yes.
such a long time.
True.
So thank you for that wonderful tour, or momos for that matter, which came later, but arguably have made themselves very, very popular in, the sort of 50 odd years they've been there. So yeah, thank you for that wonderful whirlwind tour. That was super, super interesting. Okay, so now we come to the post-partition period.
Yeah.
And coming to a changing face of migration. The city is built up, we've expanded. Khan Market has become what it is, Lajpat Nagar has become what it is, other parts of Delhi have expanded in the same way. So now how is the food culture changing coming into the 90s and the 80s, 90s, 2000s?
Again, just to understand the food culture, we have to understand the different food subcultures that exist within Delhi. We have different places, like different, different locations or different colonies, different residential areas, different neighborhoods, and they have different kind of people living out there, different communities living out there. Let's say if we talk about Kamla Nagar, if you go to Kamla Nagar, very close to Delhi University, the majority of people who live there are from Bania community. So there, majority of the places you will find is all they serve vegetarian food. They don't have many non-vegetarian food joints. And then they have people from who migrated from Pakistan. They also live around Roopnagar, Shakti Nagar areas. But it's primarily Bania communities. The food is all vegetarian food out there. Then secondly, if you move to Paharganj, there they have other food culture. We have Multani Dhanda. In fact, we should talk about that. Multani Dhanda. People who moved from Multan, they settled in Multani Dhanda, and the dish which which you get there, Gila Kulcha. I think that's the only place in Delhi where you get Gila Kulcha. Then you have
Can
Multani
you tell us
Dhanda.
what Gila Kulcha is? I've never heard of it.
Is basically they dip the kulcha in chane ka pani, and then they add some onion chutney, all of that, and it's more popular in fact in Amritsar. They call it bija kulcha there.
Okay.
And here they call it Gila Kulcha. Then you have in Multani Dhanda, Mot Kachori is very famous. Kachori with mot ki dal, and then they add a bit of rice and Multani masala over it. That's more of amchur. So they add it. So the food culture of Paharganj is different. The food culture of Kamlang is different. Then we talked about CR Park, which is more of a Bengali area. So you get the street food of Kolkata or other places in those areas. Then you have Majnu Ka Tila, where you get Tibetan food. Then if you move further towards West Delhi, like Rajendra Nagar or Shankar Market or Patel Nagar, these are all Punjabi neighborhoods. So you'll find more of the food of Punjabis out there. And so everywhere is kind of that's the combined together that forms the food culture of Delhi. So it's very difficult to define like that is what the people eat. Different locations, different food culture, and that combined together forms Delhi's food.
That's wow. Thank you for that. And is that still largely maintained today? Like today, when you have coffee shops coming up everywhere and people kind of want access to similar things, are those cultural specifications or those food subcultures as clearly demarcated as they were, or have they started to blend a little more?
They have started to blend a little more. Like say now we see a lot of innovations or experimentation that are happening in the food scene of Delhi. Like say I'll just give you an example which defines kind of the street food culture of the food culture of the city. One dish, momo. Everyone loves momo. It came from Tibetan immigrants and then Nepalese who came from Nepal. They started selling these dishes in Delhi. And now we have our own versions of momo, which was simply stuffed with chicken or a little bit of onion and garlic, or they were just vegetarian momos, two different kinds of momo. Now we have paneer momos. That's the creation of Delhi walas. Then if you go to any momo shop in Delhi, anywhere, you will find they give you chaat masala with momo. They just to cater to the local palate of Delhi
Yeah,
walas, we
yeah.
have chaat masala with momo. And then it has all evolved, more evolved over the period of time. We have momos stuffed with many other things. Like they will add sometimes chocolate momos is there. So they have like, in fact,
Szechuan momos.
and tandoori momos. I think that's also the creation of Delhi. There's this restaurant called Cuties. They were the first one to make tandoori momos in Delhi. And so tandoori momos is there. Then other so that has kind of changing and cater to the local palate of the city dwellers, you can say.
So when you look at Delhi today, what is something that used to be available that you wish was still available, that it's now is very difficult to find?
Uh, which was available and which is not available now.
Or not easily available?
I will have to think about it. I think we get mostly everything in Delhi. You have to just find it and you'll get everything in Delhi. Delhi, I always say, is like kind of a food capital of India.
Yeah.
And you name it, you have everything in Delhi. And you just need to go to Shahjahanabad, and I'm sure you'll find it there. Yeah. But I'll think about it. If there's anything which we don't find, well, me, I think we get everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were mentioning earlier the YouTube video that you did with the food blogger in Karachi. What were the kind of similarities or differences that you saw in doing that video?
Majority of them, well, lot of similarities were there. I walked around just one stretch from from Jama Masjid, gate number 1, towards the end of Chitli Kabar, just the whole stretch of Matia Mahal. And I met many people, like Aslam Chicken. Aslam, I don't know whether you visited Aslam Butter Chicken.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about that as well. That also has changed the food of Delhi. We talked about momos. In fact, we should talk about butter chicken. We should talk about how the kebabs are also changing in Delhi. So nowadays, if you go to Old Delhi anywhere, you will find they add butter in kebabs and then chaat masala as well. I think that's also Punjabi karan of kebabs. So
Wow.
yeah, and then you go to butter. If you go to butter chicken, Aslam butter chicken shop, there is no tomato in that butter chicken. It's simply grilled chicken. They add some dahi, then they add some masala and loads of Amul butter into it, and that becomes Aslam butter chicken. So I met
Delicious.
Aslam. Yeah. So Aslam's wife is from Pakistan. So and it was not a kind of a scripted video. I just randomly walked in and I asked him like, "Do you have any family members from Pakistan living in Pakistan?" I said like, "Oh, my wife is from Pakistan." And then he started. There's one shop in Karachi, very popular shop. I think it's called Bare Mia. So their relatives run that restaurant in Karachi. Then right next to Aslam shop is Kallan Bawarchi. The picture which you shared in the morning, that's from Kallan Bawarchi shop. And Asif Bhai is there in that picture. So Asif also has his family members in Pakistan, in Karachi. So a lot of similarities, and the food was also not very similar. Like the kind of nahari which we eat in Delhi is very similar you get in Karachi as well. And they also have this shop by the name Javed Nahari shop and Delhi ki Nahari or Delhi ke Dahi Bade. So all these shops exist there as well. So a lot of similarities between the food of Old Delhi and the food of Karachi and other places.
You can take the Punjabis out of their home, but you can't take the food out of them. They'll take it
That's
with
true.
them wherever they go.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Oh,
Yeah. So the food has. I think if we talk about this, food has evolved a lot in Delhi. In last, you can say, I've been seeing it for past 20 years, since 1999, very closely, and I've walked everywhere in Delhi in looking for new food places, and tasting new delicacies. So everywhere the food is evolving.
yeah, and it's so interesting. All the new influences come, but none of the old ones really leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned the changing face of kebabs. Was that the addition of butter? Was there something else to add there?
If you talk about kebabs in Old Delhi, we have orange as of like whole of Delhi, you can say we have Sikh kebabs, and in Sikh kebabs we have different versions. We have Gola kebabs,
Mm.
which is very difficult to find these days. I think there are only couple of, not even couple of places, only one place which I think they make Gola kebabs.
It requires too
And
much skill. It's hard to
yes,
teach people how to
yes,
make them. Yeah.
and they're not they're, they don't have patrons. Like say if you go and ask the local people gola kebab kya hota hai, they won't be able to tell you what gola
Right.
kebab is. Then second is sutli ke kebab. Sutli ke kebab again, I know kale baba ke kebab, that they make sutli ke kebab, which is this kebab is, and there's one more place. There are a couple of places where you get sutli ke kebab, which is
And can
basically
you tell us what that is? What is
it's
sutli?
a Sikh kebab where you tie a thread around the kebab. It is so
Oh,
soft.
okay. We had a Pakistani cook and writer, Sumaya Osmani, on a few nights ago, and she was describing this to
Yeah,
us.
it's so soft. Just to hold it over the skewer, they have
Yeah.
to tie a thread around it, and then when you take out the thread from one end, it kind of a kebab unfurls in
Oh,
your plate, and
amazing.
it is served with a steamed bheja in Old Delhi, and in Kale Baba kebab shop in Sui Walan, and you eat it with chutney and mooli, all those stuff. So that was a kind of kebab of Old Delhi. And nowadays, like if you go to any place, it's generic, just Sikh kebabs, and they will pour some Amul butter, or Sasta Wala, they will add some Neutralite, or Sasta Wala, they will add some delicious butter, which is just 10 rupees a big brick,
Yeah.
and then they will add some chaat masala and they serve it to you. So that's a kind of kebab which you get. And in Old Delhi, just if you talk about the food of other parts of other neighborhoods,
Mm.
talk about Zakir Nagar, Batla House. There are many migrants that came from UP and Bihar side. They live around that place. So there you'll see kebab with parathas. Uh, Keema parathas are very popular there. Then you'll see galati kebabs, which you get on the streets. So there are many different kinds of kebabs which are available on the streets or on the shops of food joints of Delhi. And then I talked about Aslam butter chicken. That's a quite a unique dish and very very popular. I've seen them growing from ground floor. Now they have almost 4 floors.
Wow.
They started with only chicken. Now they have mutton dish as well. They have now kebabs as well. And
That's amazing. I mean, we
yeah,
obviously, many of us can't visit right now, but if any of you want to make Aslam's chicken at home, um, the Sadaf's book, Dastane Dasar Khan, has the recipe in it. So I definitely plan to try and make it before we can go, or before we can start to go back to these restaurants, which brings me to my last question. You know, what you've talked about, it's a lot of the eating out culture. And
uh-huh.
whether or not you're sitting there, the food is being prepared outside of the home. So, and some of these places have been around for centuries. What has COVID done in the last few months? How has it affected these places? When it all opens up, will we be able to go back to all the same places, or has it had a very big impact?
If you personally ask me, it has a lot of impact. The COVID crisis and all the food joints which we just talked about. Majority of the food joints are run by the migrants.
Mm.
Like say I talked about Parathe Wali Gali. In Parathe Wali Gali, 100% of the workers are from Bihar, and they all have gone back to their home. So they are not in Delhi right now. So I'm not sure whether like maybe when the situation improves, they will come back over the period of time. But till date, like it is closed. Then in Aslam Chicken Shop as well, we talk most of the workers are from UP, and then there are many other seasonal, like say Momo shops. Many of them they are run by Nepalese people in Delhi. I don't know. I haven't seen them. Like I was there. I came to Dehradun 2 weeks back, but before that they were not there. For past 4 months they were not there. Momo shops and many chai shops. So they are also run by migrants. Even the picture I think which you shared again in the daytime, that shop, the owner of that shop is from Bihar,
Okay.
and he has been making tea for past 34 years. I think he's also gone back to his home. He hasn't come back. So it will take time. The people who are actually from Delhi, the vendors, they have started opening up their shops.
Okay.
Like say we spoke a couple of days back, I spoke to Dalchand, who runs a chaat shop in Mayur Vihar and who's been featured in Netflix Street Food Asia series. He has started his shop, but they don't have many customers because till date we have this what I use a word called khauf hai. It's like kind of stigma. Like we don't know whether if you go and eat on the streets it's going to safe or not. So those people who are from Delhi, they have started opening the shop, but those who are migrants, they haven't come back, and it will take time for them to start their food joints.
Which for a city that has been built on migrants, essentially, it's going to be
Yes.
a big, big impact till that comes back.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to take a quick look to see if there are any other questions that we might take last before we close up. I think we got to most of them. Someone did ask if the chart in Pakistan is the same as the chart in Delhi, or is it quite different?
I won't be the right person to talk about how the flavors of the chart is there, but I have seen that video which I talked about. It's very similar to the way we make it, and like say dahi bhalla, or this very similar to that.
And sorry, a couple of people have asked, actually, can you just describe gola kebabs for folks who haven't seen or heard of them before?
Acha, gola kebabs is derived from word gola. That means when you it's again made on over the skewers, and when you tie it with a thread, it's the size. When you take it out, it comes in a shape of a gola.
Yeah, and there's
So
no
so it's
there's no piercing in it.
Yeah, so you get actual pieces of kebabs.
Yeah.
So you have one skewer, and when you tie it with a thread, you have like 2-3 rounds, and then when you take it out, you have like cubes of pieces of kebabs. So that's
And
what
the
we call
skill in the
gola.
gola kebab is to take it out without that hole being visible.
Yes,
Yeah.
So it's like a gola kebab.
Yeah, and then the final question is about Haldiram. Where are the origins of?
Oh, Haldiram, I think they originated. I'm not sure, but I think they started from Rajasthan.
Rajasthan. Okay.
Most of them, like Bikaner or Bikanerwala or Haldiram, most of them, majority of them started from Rajasthan.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Anubhav. This has been such a delicious conversation. I think all of us are now very hungry and dying for these eateries to open. Go there, and you've taken us through the Mughal period, you've taken us through the British period, you've taken us through all of the migration of the Banya and the Kayas and the Nepalese and the Tibetan and the people from Tamil Nadu and from Bengal, and then finally all of the refugees who came down during partition. So, actually, I have a final question. Where is Sindhi food in the tapestry of Delhi's food?
See, Sindhi food is very difficult to find in Delhi. I haven't found a single place, a single eatery where you get Sindhi food.
Wow. Okay.
But you get some sweets of Sindhis in Delhi. This very popular shop, Chenaram Confectioners, which is very close to Fatehpuri Masjid. That's owned by a Sindhi family. And again, they also moved from Pakistan after partition, and they started a shop. That shop used to be in Lahore in 1901. And in 1947, they came to Delhi and started a shop called Chenaram Confectioners. During Holi festival, if you go there, they have this sweet called Sindhi jalebi. I wish I could show you the picture. It's a very finely made jalebi.
Okay.
And very crisp, which you get in Chenaram sweets. Then other sweet is Sindhi samosa. They call it Sindhi samosa or Sindhi gujia, which is a kind of a gujia but more flaky, more layered in it.
Right.
So I've seen only 2 dishes of Sindhi community in Shahjahan and other places. Apart from that, I haven't found any single place where you get Sindhi food. There are caterers who make it, but not any particular shop.
Someone is telling us that there's apparently a place in Shalimar Bagh for Sindhi food.
They have only one dish.
Dal pakwan.
Dal pakwan. That's it.
Yeah.
But there's more. There's more to Sindhi cuisine. There's
a lot more. Yeah. There's a lot more to Sindhi cuisine. No, absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, this has been such a great chat. Thank you so much for enlightening us and telling us so much about Delhi. And I think it's just been, Delhi's always been a trader's city, and it's difficult, I guess, when you look at how permanent, South Delhi, North Delhi, East Delhi, West Delhi looks today. It's difficult to think that these are actually relatively new structures, and this culture that we think of as Delhi culture has actually only evolved in the last few decades. It's not much older than that. But all of the influences that make up that culture are very old influences, but their coming together is much newer than their existence. So I think that's something that makes Delhi particularly unique, is that they've all been, as you said, none of them have been lost. They're all available still. They're all there. So thank you so much, Anubhav.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for joining us once again. We will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we are taking a completely different look at partition once again, and we're looking at partition and the Indian diaspora. So we will be joined by BBC presenter Monica Plaha, who's going to be talking about the South Asian experience in England after partition through her own family story. Please do join us, and good night. Bye folks. Bye, Anupam.
Bye bye.